All right, all right, all right. I guess we are live again. And it's not even only me, which is even better. Welcome to another freshly squeezed episode of PKs on Air, Monday, 4 p.m. German time. And well, it looks like what is a busy week. At least at the Peak Ace offices. But luckily for me, I'm not alone anymore, which is great. Already kind of really felt a bit kind of lonely, to be honest. But yeah, so Dominique is back from vacation, actually.
Yep. Happy to be
Yep.
back.
Yep, that's what she has to say about leaving me for what felt ages and ages and ages. But hey, I mean, it is what it is, right? This is what women do usually.
What?
What? How was your vacation? Anyways,
It
did you
was
have a good time?
yeah, it was
Yeah.
great. So yeah, I spent some days in Austria. Did some hiking trips. Very successful. I was a bit afraid, but it worked well. Yeah, and it was just 1.5 weeks, and I came back yesterday and was like, okay, I'm pretty ready to go back to the office. Have a lot of new energy. Had no people around me, no emails, so
I was
everything.
gonna say, did you manage to stay offline then? I mean, you're usually one of those that kind of is connected on vacation as well, right?
Yeah, it worked. It worked kind of good this time, I would say. So yeah, usually I'm more like, okay, every second evening I just need to scroll down a bit and check very short what happened during the
Yeah.
last 2 days. But this time I was like, okay, well, we had like crazy weeks and months, and I
Yeah.
know that's going to continue like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, just enjoyed 1.5 weeks without emails mainly.
Without me bugging you, that's what you're basically saying.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think that's only fair. Yeah. No, sounds good. But how was it? Like, I mean, how was it travel-wise? Like, any complications, or was it kind of all normal? How did you feel about kind of traveling?
It was quite normal, I would say. So I went there with by train.
Yeah.
Was pretty easy, and I would say in Austria. So now it changed again since last week Friday, but the days
Yeah.
before everything was just normal. So no kind of face masks anywhere. Was super weird to be in like a supermarket or restaurant. Everybody is like nothing happened before. So I was
Yeah.
pretty careful and tried to go away from the city of Salzburg as soon as possible and over to the countryside. And over there, everything was quite normal, I would say. So of course, heading some needed to go to through the border patrol between Austria and Germany, which feels not normal anymore.
Yeah, that's true because of the open borders. You're right. But
Yeah,
there were no special checks, right? I mean, they're just kind
no,
of, yeah.
nothing.
But I mean, what you're saying is interesting, right? With the in regards to kind of this back and forth situation, if you so will.
Yeah,
I just like saw a friend of mine posting the kind of the same thing from Spain again, right? So they
yeah,
also kind of I wouldn't say fully recovered, but like it kind of got back to a bit of a more normal mode, and now all of a sudden,
yeah.
well, kind of cases are spiking again, right? So
Definitely,
yeah.
yeah. It feels weird to be in a city at the moment where everything seems like nothing ever happened. And yeah, it was like, maybe I should avoid to go to the office during the next 1 or 2 weeks to have a self quarantine or whatever. Even if I pretty took care or much took care of getting in touch with any kind of
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
It's weird because I think in Berlin it's a bit more, especially when you go with public transport. Everybody is now wearing face masks, right? And in Austria, it was like, oh, okay, wow, nothing.
Yeah,
So
yeah, totally makes sense. I kind of had the, I mean, I only did in a German travel, but as you said, like there, everyone is kind of wearing the masks, and yeah, so I can imagine, how that felt. But yeah, I mean, on the other hand, right, it is a bit of what we have been saying before. I mean, it's far from over, even though some things might
definitely,
suggest that temporarily, things are better, or you see an uptick if you just look at our our channels from a business perspective, you see like, well, it feels a bit more normal, but I think, well, that's a dangerous thought on that. So did you manage to continue your reading spree, or are we still not there yet that we can dedicate a full show to you reviewing some books?
To be honest, I did nothing during my holidays. It was just my holidays were something between like having perfect Austrian food, being on hiking trips, and in the evening enjoying the spa.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a perfect holiday to be fair. So
definitely.
fair enough. Fair enough.
So I had 3
Very
books
nice.
with me, but every evening after.
Well, it's the count that thoughts, right? I mean, that's what they say, right?
Definitely.
So I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So sounds good.
Maybe during the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, maybe. I think you keep on saying that I for whatever reason I don't believe that's going to happen. But well, looking at our schedules, I have my doubts. But let's see if you manage. I'm quite curious.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I can imagine. So for this week's episode, actually, when I looked at the topics, so before we got into it, when I looked into the topics for what we can do, and also some of the feedbacks, I think one of the things that came up, and I think we also touched on it a couple of times during earlier episodes, was I mean, I think you kind of talked about it in the context of like content campaignings and content campaigns and how to measure it and measure outcomes. And I think on the other hand, like there's a lot of things happening on the tool landscape. There's a lot of things going on in regards to Data Studio. Like everyone is pushing and releasing things for GDS, which I think is a great thing in itself, right? So I thought one of the cool topics could be to kind of discuss a bit about, not about, but around, like, you know, what's going on there, and you know, what can you do, and things that make sense, things that don't make sense. So I thought that would be a good topic for today. But before we go into this, I had a quite interesting experience this weekend, actually, and I thought that's probably worth sharing and discussing as well. Since you spent your time on holiday, I'm quite sure you have at least not seen it. So
I saw your Facebook post.
Yeah, you saw my Facebook post, exactly. Yeah. No, honestly, I was and it's not solely, I mean, probably not even SEO, but more like I would say online marketing or brand marketing. But anyhow, so I kind of spent my Saturday and Sunday evening actually working on like a big pitch. But what I did meanwhile is that I watched the Tomorrowland Festival, which I mean, obviously, usually happens in Belgium this time of the year with a really, really significant crowd. I think it's over 100K per weekend. And actually, I think now they even do it like twice, like 2 weekends kind of almost in a row because of the high demand of that festival. I think it was the first time what happened was last year. And then obviously due to circumstances, kind of it got cancelled. At least the real one, relatively early on when Corona and the crisis started. So I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I would imagine it was end of March, very early of April that the organizers said, well, we can't do it, right? And I read an article about it the other day, like on damages caused due to like just the environment and like the businesses that are somewhat close by, right? So suppliers, but also like small food shops and whatnot. It was a crazy sum. And then I kind of lost like to follow up, right? So that was I didn't plan on going originally. I just found it quite interesting because I had a pretty solid, or actually pretty good communication strategy around it. Opposite to like other mega festivals, like I think one of the negative examples in that regard was the Ultra music festival, and like, I mean, that happens in Miami, but also in Croatia, the European one, and they like they were always like, yeah, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, and then literally like a week in advance, they kind of canceled it. So like people had booked travel and whatnot. So, I mean, long story short, I looked at that communication, was like, that's really, I mean, I understand some of the reasons probably, but like it's a tough one, right? We talked about events already in the past. So yeah, I kind of followed up on like the Tomorrowland because I was curious what they're doing, and then they announced like a virtual festival. I was like, okay, well, virtual festival, what is that going to be, right? But I kind of got curious. I saw a couple of like promo posts, I think from some of the DJ lineup. I believe it was on Instagram at that time, and the lineup was actually quite massive in comparison to what's usually happening there. So there was like the mega stars, like, I don't know, Tiesto and David Guetta and even Katy Perry, which is quite unusual for a Tomorrowland. But anyways, so there was like, I mean, it was mainly, obviously it was EDM and that type of stuff. And then I was like, that lineup reached like any major festival lineup that would happen in the real world, right? And I was like, how are they doing that? And then I saw like this, and that was when I kind of got really curious. I saw this this massive stage that they built up, actually, realizing that it was a green room, as well as the fact that they not only had one of those, but actually 4 of them around the globe. So one was in Europe, I think it was actually in Belgium, then they had one in Australia, one in the US, and the 4th location I just can't recall, because obviously also like all the artists can't travel, right? So Steve Aoki was playing, and he's obviously kind of stuck in the US, right? So you can't get to Europe. So they actually set up those green room stages that they looked entirely identical, on 4 different locations. I was like, okay, so if they do that, like, shit ton of effort, that has to be something quite interesting, right? So I was really, I kind of got curious. I was like, okay, I have to see it. And then they kind of, they were selling, like, I mean, and that's quite funny. That was the first thing that kind of confused me. They were selling the tickets for an evening like at 12 euros. And I think for 2 evenings was 20 euros. And people were complaining, right? And I was like, okay. I mean, because everyone probably got used to the fact that they are now all like streaming for free, right? Because the artists can't play. But then I was like, come on now. I mean, 20 euros. Yeah. For that lineup is literally nothing. Yeah, so kind of I signed up, and I didn't expect anything, and then obviously I missed like the opening because I was busy with some other stuff, but kind of dialed in, and I was honestly really, really, really surprised about the entirety of this thing. So what I mean, so the initial experience was relatively straightforward. As with everything, you just you use you create an account, and you just pay with whatever, like, PayPal, credit card, and whatnot. And then it instantly kind of connects the payment to your Tomorrowland account, and that's basically it. And then you go in and you can say, well, there was a dedicated landing page. They actually even brought up like a pre-production page where you can test it if you want to stream it with your Apple TV or Chromecast or whatnot. So relatively well thought through, I have to say. And then you kind of basically you dial in, right? So then you don't expect anything. So what then happened is, I put it on my screen share for a second, for those that haven't seen it or are not following my my Facebook post. 1 second. So it looked like this, basically. So when you dialed in, you got a screen that kind of looks like this. I didn't do a full screen, like without this layer on the right hand side, basically. Can we get a bit better? Yeah. So you had this on the left hand. You had this entire island, basically. It reminded me a bit of like any virtual RPG kind of a situation. So you came in, you had this island, and you could move around with a mouse cursor, or like with your keyboard and whatnot, and you could kind of go through this island, and it had like different areas. Like the one that screenshotted here is the main stage, basically, and it had like I think 9 or 10 different areas. Some of them were stages, and some were like topical, relevant, like on the screen on the right, they had, for example, this cocktail area, or they had like a library and some other things. And basically on the right in the layer, I'm not sure if I have another screen here, maybe. Let me see what else is here. No, this is just all the stages. Yeah, but basically, here, yeah, there you go. So this is like another one that was there. So you have like a description, and then you could say like either explore, or it was a button that said like, okay, you wanna enter the stage, right? So that alone, I was like, this is actually quite cool, and quite interesting how you can see, right? This is another set of the island where I kind of scrolled to, where there was another of those elements where you could kind of dial in. And I was like, holy shit, this is actually quite impressive. And then, I mean, obviously, as you do, you dial in, and then I went to one of the stages, and then you got like a bit of a different view that kind of, well, very different. But you have something like this where you could see like the DJ performing, and you can already see like, if I take another screen like this one. This is basically the stage from the green room, right? So this is kind of the setup that they had. So this entire thing here with the trees on the right, etc. This is all like that was actually a physical stage in the green room, and you would have like that. This was like, I think, Steve Aoki playing, right? And then
Sorry, I thought it's just like an animated whatever.
No, this was real performance. But the crazy stuff was, when you look at, and this is this as well, right? You had the chat on the right-hand side, where you kind of could also like interact and whatnot. But this, for example, is another take. It's also the stage, but this is like entirely computer animated, right? So this is entirely CG, so completely generated. And so they make a very interesting kind of blend of, just go back to one of the other screens where you can see it a bit better. Yeah, here. So you have this is entirely rendered, right? So the crowd and everything is completely animated. But what they had is, and that's interesting, they had takes of other, well, if you know, you had takes of other Tomorrowlands mixed with the animated stuff. So, for example, what I found quite impressive is if one of the DJs would say something that would kind of result in people clapping, you actually had like the originally clapping sound as well. So the production was absolutely insane, visually as well as the audio, and entirely streamed in HD with 1,000 whatever pixels. I was honestly mind blown when I saw it. I was like, holy fuck, this is so cool. I haven't seen anything like that before, and I think it's a perfect blend of kind of AR in combination with like the real world production, because it felt like a game, if you so will, but you had actually a live performance. Yeah. It was absolutely nuts. I was honestly impressed. I was like, okay, that alone is already pretty damn cool. So I mean, of course, what they did, and that explains the green rooms, to just kind of go back to that for a second, they of course had to pre-record the sets on the stage, and then they kind of built like the entire animation and the audio streams around. But so that was really cool. But what I found, not that, what I really found interesting, and this is also why I kind of posted it, and you've probably seen some of the things already on the screen, is that they even went one step further and already started blending in some of the like marketing elements of this entire setup. So one of the things is what you had were areas like, I bring this one up again, like this cocktail area, where I mean it was a bit basic, to be honest. I mean, you had like some recipes and like some other things going on there when you went in. You could have done more, right? Certainly. But I think the fact of the matter is that they only had like 3 months time to turn it around. So I mean, they did it in what I understand is that they had roughly 200 people working on this entire thing over a period of 3 months, like literally day and night shifts, to actually even make it happen, right? And I mean, this is not only the stuff on the rendering and on that end. It's building this entire thing, and it's the production, it's the post-production. I was really impressed that they even managed to tie in any of those marketing or sponsorship elements. But yeah, so I found it quite cool that this is probably like a first idea of what we will be seeing in the future, if you if you kind of start combining real world kind of not only events, but just generally like real world performances and tie that into a virtual environment. So yeah, Absolute Vodka had this cocktail area, which was really cool. There was also like an event that or like a stage, kind of a competition that Pepsi, or in this case Pepsi Max, sponsored. So they were like doing kind of a competition on selecting one of the like the up and comings, so to say. That was quite cool. There were also some more basic things. I think it was on this screen, yeah, which like, so Bex basically just sponsored one of the streams, so they had this lay-in, which is not, I mean, not crazy exciting, but nevertheless, apparently they had like a bunch of different things going on there. I mean, again, it was not overly like in depth, so of course you could have probably done more, which is also one of the things that I found a bit odd, to be honest. So I mean, there was a bit of promotion around this entire thing, but I felt that there could have been more. Like, so I was saying, so this entire thing felt a bit isolated for me. I mean, you had everything going on in this island, and I think that might have even been on purpose, right? So it could have been, but I think if you would have opened it up, because some of the artists, they had a live stream on Facebook, for example, which makes sense, right? And you had like, there were a couple of thousand people watching it live, so I kind of checked numbers in between. So I think if you would have had a bit more of a tie-in there, or similarly to, and I think in Germany, Tomorrowland was like a trending hashtag on Twitter for a while, but there was not really that much promotion going on. So I'm not sure if that was on purpose, if it was due to time shortage, but I think they could have gone way more crazy in that regard. So like campaigning around this entire thing. But then again, I guess considering how short the timing was, I mean, sometimes you just have to ride with it, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I haven't seen anything about the promotion for this event. I didn't recognize before that it's going to happen in a virtual way.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's a missed opportunity, right? Because I mean, they had of course, for all the ticket owners, for like the real ticket owners, that was like free to attend. But with the fact that they opened it up for like 12 euros or I don't know, like 20 euros for the weekend, I mean, that's an easy game to promote, because so I think that was a bit of a missed opportunity. I would also imagine that a bit more tie-in with like the promotions on the likes of Instagram and whatnot would have not hurt. But then again, maybe it was also just worth a try, and they wanted to see how it goes. So it's not a criticism, but more like an observation where I was like, yeah, that could have been potentially done. That could have been done a bit more. But the overall experience was really, really good, I have to say. I mean, there were like very rarely were there any issues with stream or like connectivity. So, and I think that at that scale alone is quite a significant achievement in itself. And I think people were like really, really impressed. I saw like, I mean, for those that actually participated in communication, like around on Twitter and whatnot, they were like mind blown by just the CG, so that the computer generated stuff in combination with the real performance, because I think no one really expected that. So yeah, it was.
No one ever have seen something like this, right?
No. I mean, that's the point. I mean, they're all either bailing out and canceling the festival, or doing like regular kind of live stream situations, right? But like nothing more than that. So
super cool.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a very, very interesting thing going on there. And I'm quite curious, especially in the times that we are in right now, what there is. I mean, so I think what you need first and foremost, and I think this is something that Tomorrowland as a festival probably stands for, is like a crazy amount of creativity, right? I mean, I mean, the project itself is obviously mainly depending on execution, right? I mean, you need to produce that stuff, you need to kind of animate it, But I think what is even more important than everything is everything around like the general concept and coming up with the idea, and then like, let's do this island, which is like a really cool idea in itself. I was impressed.
Definitely. Yeah, it has like a huge like gamification character, right? So seeing this island, and you are able to switch the stages, and also going over to, I don't know, the cocktail bar and see recipes. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've never seen something like this before.
And I think it's also like a great baseline to extend it, right? I mean, they also have they have Tomorrowland. I think they have a winter edition, or had a winter edition first time last year in somewhere in France. So I think there's a bunch of, like, as you said, gamification elements that can be extended over to up and coming festivals. They combined it also with merchandise and whatnot. So there's a bunch of stuff that kind of you could do within, and that obviously leaves great room to grow this virtual experience as well. So that's what I really found quite cool. And I think also from an advertisement perspective, I think you can do a really massive amount of things in there, right? That going back to this, what we already have with online games, is like this in-game purchase and whatnot. So I think that's something that people are already kind of used to. So I think if you play that well, you can extend it into that direction as well. So I was quite surprised, but also like pleasantly surprised, because I felt that was a really cool thing to pull off, and I'm quite sure they will be getting a lot of recognition for that one.
Cool. Good invested 20 euros, I would say.
No, absolutely. I honestly, I was like, this is something that you need to see if you're doing, like, if you're in marketing, because that's probably the next level of like events, considering that I don't feel that we're gonna be seeing any of the mega events anytime soon. I mean, with the restrictions and whatnot, I mean, I hope, don't get me wrong, I would rather very much prefer and see it live than do it virtual. But I mean, I don't think that the mega events are going to happen anytime soon. I mean, I think for us in a very small, and that's way smaller, I'm also curious to see how SMX is going to work. So we have SMX Munich, right, coming up in roughly 2 months. Early September. No, one.
6 weeks, right? Or
6 weeks. Almost 6 weeks. Right. So I mean, I assume they're not producing that, but I think in that regard, it's also interesting how I would say like the acceptance of like the marketing crowd, or generally probably the online marketing industry is going to look like. So are they preferring to kind of go? Will they be there in person, or are they not going? I think it's also something that we are kind of interested in to find out, I would say, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I'm pretty curious how it's going to be, how many people will be there, and also about if there will be any side events maybe, or so how will the presentation will be, right? And also the mixture of also speakers who will be there, who will be or stay at home, and also so it's.
Yeah, and I think it's also like the similar to Tomorrowland, like the circumstances of that. Our friends from the States, I mean, they can't even travel, right? I mean, it's the other way around. If we would go, we can't. So, like, I think all of those limitations somehow also require for a bit more modern and well, at least seamlessly, let's say, integrated ways of streaming content in, rather than having someone present in person. Because if you recall, like 1-2 years ago, it's like, oh, if there should be a video conference on a stage. It's like, no, let's not do that. That's like, it's too dangerous. It's not going to work. And I can understand where they are coming from, but I suppose it's just not going to happen anymore. Like, you have to do it if you wanna kind of continue this entire thing. So I don't know. I'm very much curious on what the future brings in that regard, and if there's any other of those events kind of picking it up, because I think it's a great kind of compromise in that regard. Better than like not having the experience.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm also pretty curious what's happened, because I think there's, as you mentioned, a lot of open opportunities how to improve that as well. I'm just thinking about when it's about a festival like you've watched during the weekend, and there's also like something like a cocktail bar. I'm thinking like mixing up also like the physical thing more with the virtual thing, like with whoever is signing up, I don't know, 3 weeks in advance is
Yeah, you can
having,
pre-ship
or
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Having
Yeah.
something like a small, I don't know, festival kit at home for
Yeah.
mixing your own, I don't know, gin tonic, vodka, something,
Yeah. Yeah.
to even, make even more out of it. I think they're also in terms of more, sponsoring as well. So I think like
Yeah.
the events or festivals, there's sponsoring is like a major key of festivals, right? So it's super
Clearly.
important for them.
Yeah.
And I'm also pretty curious to see what happened over there. And fingers crossed that there's developing something in this direction, because it looks pretty cool. It's not 100% my music, but I wished
Fair enough. I
I
mean,
could have seen it.
yeah, I mean, I can understand that. I guess you're either in or out. That's fair enough. But I guess let alone the music, I think, as you said, the overall setup is quite exciting. I think one of the things that you said, and I think this is going to be a tough challenge for all of them to solve, is, I mean, I like this like pre-shipping and getting some of that, but the issue that they all haven't solved yet is like the personal interaction that happens in groups if you take off like from a stage, right? So let's say like, maybe there's some kind of thing that allows groups with video in the future. So I think those things, like, so you don't want to run like a Zoom or whatever in parallel, right? So I think that if you want like a seamless experience, I think that's a lot of the like where a lot of like interaction happens. So I think if they solve that, that could be quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine something like Instagram, Facebook, I don't know, whatever social media channel, data mining on a separate, I don't know, spot on the island. So whenever something is posting their Insta story at home, you are able to watch that over the island or whatever.
Yeah. There was one thing that was like a kind of a wall, so you could go there, you could post something, and it kind of it went up there, so you could share some of the stuff and your thoughts. But so there's definitely plenty of room on that front. I agree.
Cool. Do you know if that's still accessible, or do they have any?
I know that. So I just saw an email that came in earlier where you have, as a subscriber, you have the like the ability to kind of play the sets, but I'm not sure if the island is still there. I am going to investigate and do a quick follow up on that, but I haven't tried it, to be honest. Yeah, but it was quite fun way to spend my pitch work on, next to it at least.
Perfect.
I was a bit slower than I was planning on doing, but yeah, it was fair enough. So that's that. I think the other one, coming back to the more not so inspirational, but maybe hopefully equally helpful topic that I thought we should spend a bit more time on for today, is reporting, dashboarding, KPIs and whatnot, because I think that's, equally important. And I think we already kind of mentioned it a couple of times in the past. And I think when you went through one of your presentations that you gave, you also had a bit of like, this is what we do and this is kind of how we measure output. So I think we also talked about this, like the issue with comparing data due to the fact that pre and post COVID is probably a bit of a very different story. So I thought, well, why not have a quick chat on that topic as well. So I'm gonna bring up the slides that I have. Let me see if I can do that full screen. No, where is it?
I think I saw it like.
Where is the presentation mode? Weird.
Isn't there Vollbildmodus a bit below?
Yeah, this one. There it is. Yeah, I was gonna say this is what I was looking for. Just too blind to find it. So I think And again, as per all our previous episodes, happy to share what we have on the slides. So if you want them, feel free to reach out. Hi@pa.ag is where you can get in touch, or in the comments. Either way works. And I don't want to kind of spend too much time on the basics, because I think that's relatively clear. But I would say overall, just moving on a bit, what is an interesting observation of ours is that the market of tools or tooling in general, I would say, and also like the pure amount of tools that we are kind of somewhat either are working with or are at least confronted in various scenarios with, is significantly increasing, right? So you could easily exchange a Tableau with a Data Studio, or an Adobe Analytics with a Google Analytics, or a crawler such as Deep Crawl with, Write, SEMrush with a Systrix, Majestic with an Ahrefs. So there's at least, well, the only thing that you can't exchange is Google Search Console. I mean, you could use Bing, but that probably doesn't do it justice. No offense there, but I think, yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a whole bunch of different tools, and I mean, there's always it significantly depends on what you want to get out, and maybe also like a general decision on, for some companies, or especially in the corporate world, they can't use or don't want to use Google Analytics for various reasons. That's fair enough. So then it's not Data Studio, but Tableau, as in this case. So that can happen. But either way, right? So there's a whole bunch of like tooling that's somewhat out there. I think one of the trends that we are seeing, at least, is that I would say 3-4 years ago, when the tool market got really crowded, it was still kind of common that you would go to this tool for that, and you would go into that tool for this type of data, and another one for something else. And I think what's really frustrating is that they all didn't, or still to an extent don't really talk with each other. So you have like different data sources, different reportings here, different reportings there. Especially for like a certain type of audience, they don't want to log into 5 different tools and then don't even understand like the tool lingo, so to say. So you just don't get what is the trust flow. I, as a CEO, probably don't know, and also don't care. So I think it's way kind of too hard to customize. And I think this is where solutions such as Tableau, which is around for ages, but also like Data Studio more recently, kind of help significantly, right? So the aggregation of data through APIs or other means, like could also be sheets and whatnot, is I think one of the trend topics and things that really help a lot in terms of efficiency, but also in terms of customization. I think that's super important.
Definitely.
And I mean, this is just taken from a Data Studio, but I think it's also one of the things that we enjoy a lot. And we do a lot of work mainly on Data Studio, some on Tableau, for various reasons. But I think it's really appealing. By now, you can make it look nice. You can brand it in any way that you like. That could be the corporate brand. That could be like the agency brand, as in our case, and then bring just different types of data into it and blend it together. Of course, it's especially strong with the Google products. That makes sense, right? So get all the GA data, Search Console, but also if you go a bit more advanced and probably have some aggregation type of work going in a BigQuery, this is like super, super easy to kind of do that and then kind of get this output in a way that you want it, tied in with all the tool providers that you prefer, because you could just get the data, put it into BigQuery, match it there, and then output it in Data Studio. And the Data Studio itself even is free, which is amazing. So it's mainly the work kind of in the back end, right, that needs to be done. And it's shareable, right? So the other thing is like no one needs to wait. And I think this is also one of the things that you are saying all the time, like no one wants like this specific dates for reportings. They just want to see it when they want to see it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So when we started in content marketing as well to work with those data studios, it helped so much to have like be able to send over to the not to send over, but to have data available for the client all the time. Whenever they want to see something, the data is there. and also to have like different kind of pages, right? To have something like an overview, a dashboard, and then having like a deep dive when it's about, I don't know, content performance or backlink, link deep dive and whatever. I think the accessibility is like, or shareability for others is a pretty good thing over there. Yeah. So. Yeah.
And I think also what it takes away is a bit of the necessity for, I mean, let's say the non-practitioner to even go into any of the tools, right? Because I mean, let's take like the visibility index from Systrix, for example, which is like a very commonly known metric in the SEO and also in the content marketing like world, which you know is oftentimes, at least in combination with traffic, and this is also where the issue starts, used to kind of at least compare, right, with competition, kind of go with benchmarking, but also for you guys, I suppose, to kind of judge you know, domains in terms of, are they even worth for in terms of outreach, right?
Yeah.
The issue is like the practitioner does understand that, but like the next level in the chain, so to say, doesn't even. So I think if you can just get it here, have like this nice explanation, give like a trend line, done, right? They don't even need to know that how to find it in Systrix, for example. And that's true for every tool, basically.
Definitely, that's a good thing. And what I see as well is that whenever we have like reportings for our client, as you mentioned, they have not access to all of the tools. We as an agency, of course, have a very huge tool stack and need to have access to almost everything, let's say, or at least to everything, which is good. And that gives us the chance to give also clients as much data and see correlation between different kind of, let's say, backlink quality metrics, because every tool is providing something different, right? And this gives us, it's also super valuable for clients in this case, I would say, to see a huge overview of different metrics from different kind of tools.
I agree. I mean, and I think also even Google somewhat says it, or well, they're not saying it directly, but I think if you read between the line, then I think there's a very strong case to not just have the search console, because I mean, you could argue like, you know, it's just, let's use the Google tool stack, right? Let's use GA 360 or whatever you're using for my traffic and the UX data, right? That's fair enough, because I have visits in there, I have sessions, I have, you know, bounce rates and whatnot. And then let's use Search Console for like the for the kind of organic performance data. You would not need any like, you know, SEM Rush or, you know, Majestic for links or whatever. But I think this is only half of the truth. I mean, I understand that Google wants to kind of communicate it that way, but I would say, latest at the point, even if you would argue about, you know, how massively, I'm not saying flawed, but how simplified the data is getting in Search Console, because they're consolidating, so they're assigning it to the canonical and whatnot, right? So even if you would ignore that part, latest when you start doing competitive comparison and say, well, you know, how's my competitor doing over week versus how am I doing? You're out. And the same is true for like the technical depth. So like you like the well, that what you have in Search Console is nice, but it's far from being detailed enough. So what you definitely still need is some kind of tie-in for like health metrics and whatnot. So I think there's a strong case, and same is true for link data again, right? You only get the link list, that doesn't really help you. So I think there's a strong case to have, of course, the Google data, because that's the Google's source of truth. So it would be not smart to ignore it, but tie it together with the tools that you trust or deliver, like the KPIs that you need to report on or that you believe in, or either way, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think there can be a whole bunch of them. And you can go wide and crazy, or you just go a bit more specific, and then you can tailor it. So this is just a very random example taken from, I think, even another pitch that we did a while ago on where the company that we talked to had different, of course, recipients. That always happens, right? So we were talking, it was a global account. So we were talking to the local markets that have one need, but we also have a central marketing. We had a central marketing where they not only do like the operative reporting, but also kind of the strategic that potentially means they need a bit more. detail potentially or other data. And then we of course have upper management, which is just probably kind of a massively consolidated down to 3-4 numbers type of a reporting. And then of course, if you look into the reporting itself, like from an organic perspective, I think there's some core SEO metrics which can be as simple as like traffic development or the SEO value itself, but you can also go deeper depending on who is getting it. So is it, as I said just earlier, is it technical health that you are reporting on, or is it web performance, which now even more so with the recent announcement in terms of like core web vitals is something that you should probably be keen on kind of having as a KPI potentially. Or also, like as you said, for off-page work, is it link metrics or is it mentions or both, right? So upper management probably doesn't really care. They only care that traffic comes in, which is fair enough. But for those that are on a operative kind of level and mode, I think for them it's really, really important. And I think this is on the core SEO spectrum. Again, that obviously is a bit depending on what you are doing, but I think this should give like a relatively good idea. Tied in with, and I think we all, at least I know we both agree on the fact that that UX or generally engagement, maybe a better phrase or term to use it, user engagement, user behavior is something that has a significant impact on your SEO performance overall. So of course you would also look at data that not necessarily is at first glance SEO related, but then again still is, right? So how qualified are those, right? Are they interacting are they interacting to qualified visits, for example, or is it something that has a very short session duration and whatnot, right? There's a bunch of things and stages that you probably need to define there, but they would tell you if the traffic that you're driving, I mean, it's great if your site is healthy and working, but if you're not driving traffic and the traffic is not of the quality that you want, well, then that doesn't really help either, right? And I guess lastly, of course, then it's not only about the hard kind of conversion to a lead or to a sale, but also like there's a bunch of like micro and macro, depending on how deep you can go. Is it in this case saving configurations, or is it downloads from something like a PDF or a white paper? This can also all be KPIs somehow tied into the work that a channel actually is doing, right? So there's a whole bunch of them that can make sense depending on what your goals actually are. Is it a lead gen? Is it an online shop and whatnot? Yeah. And I think to just go a tiny bit deeper, I don't want to spend like too much time on it, but like I think we all have seen something like this, kind of in this pyramid form, right? So like we have some kind of core SEO metrics, and most importantly, I mean, value versus investment and traffic. And then of course, one level deeper, it can be something like the visibility, or it can be rankings for top keywords or health, etc., right? And yeah, as I said, like health monitored can be something that you could do with a Tableau. If you're doing it, you can just overlay it and correlate it. That's quite nice. Or visibility, etc. You can do the same for the kind of user behavior metrics, right? So this is classic funnel phase that we all know. So the AIDA funnel, where we have, of course, like qualified is very high up, and then like depending on where you are on the stage, you would do the same thing. Again, you can tie this together with wherever you take it from, and then put it into a Tableau in this case, or micro and macro conversions. We already mentioned that, right? So how valuable are they? Do they even have a buying intent or not? What's the cost per lead for one of those? Is it in a, depending again on which state you're in, does it even generate any positive ROI as just driving traffic for the sake of traffic, but they're not interacting at all? I think then you might have another issue, right? So you would reach potentially your health goals, you would reach your rankings even, and it might even drive traffic, but if they're not interacting, then you have a problem. So same story, analytics taken into Tableau, you can blend it countrywide, or either way. There's a bunch of those. So I think there's not this one solution. I think this is also why I kind of wanted to bring it up. I think reporting in our mind, first and foremost, needs to be tied into business goals. I think this is what is super, super important. because only then it can really measure the impact of a certain channel, right? Otherwise, you will always have discussions. Well, yeah, if you only report on, and I think we have seen that as well, right? If you only report on link metrics or SEO visibility, well, that might not be good enough.
Yeah.
Potentially. I don't know, but yeah. So I think this is something that is really not sufficient. So I think it comes down, because again, you have data in different systems. It comes down to blending it together and selecting the right metrics depending on the recipients. I think this is what it really comes down to. How are you guys doing this? I mean, on content campaigns, I mean, I know that in the past, especially a lot of like other agencies in the market used to solely report on links, which again is a bit similar, like to just report visibility, at least I think in my mind. So what's the current status on how are you guys doing this by now, and what's your recommendation in terms of like measuring content campaigning and campaign success?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the overall goals you have. So whenever, I think I mentioned that before in another episode, that whenever we start with a longer content marketing strategy and long-term content ideation and whatever, it's super important for us, of course, to take care of business goals of our clients, but also take a status quo of the current search performance, right? So, and after that, we define which kind of KPIs we should take care of and which one we should take into our reporting dashboard. And I think what is super important to divide in content marketing between, like, is it about content marketing campaigns, like we have like those interactive landing pages and whatever, or is it about purely content, like, I don't know, web shop content category content and whatever. So it really depends, because content is such a huge field, of course. And whenever we talk about content marketing campaigns, I always say that there's like the magic triangle, let's say, between backlinks, rankings, and conversions. So I think those are the three major goals you have, with, of course, different kind of KPIs in between. And what's super important over there is that, like, trying to achieve all of those three, it's never going to happen, because of course, when you're trying to achieve or generate backlinks and relevant keyword rankings, it will not be that possible to also include, like, I don't know, a lot of CTAs to generate any kind of conversions, if it's sales or leads or whatever. So it's more like having different kind of KPIs in after each other, right? So starting with backlinks and starting with rankings, let's say, and afterwards going over when the outreach phase, for example, is done and landing page is already ranking, then starting to adjust the landing page a bit to implement some kind of call to actions, let's say, or implement or adjust any kind of, I don't know, downloadable ebook or whatever, or pop up to register for a newsletter, to also work on conversions makes totally sense. And then I think those are the three major things you should always have in mind. And then we have, like, of course, the general things like organic traffic and open rates for emails as well, right? When we talk about outreach, this is super relevant for having testings over there. Then time on site, duration time. When we talk about interactive content campaigns, of course, unique visitors, bounce rate. Bounce rate is always a bit tricky, also depending here on the intent and the content format, of course. And then we have, of course, like backlinks, the quality of backlinks, not only the number. And
I was going to say, it's not only backlinks, it's also kind of quality and context, right? I think this is also what
definitely. And also the way how the backlink is integrated, right? Not only having, I don't know, any kind of footer backlink, nobody cares about it. So it's not it's about the quality of the backlink, but also the way of integration and the
so it's more like the story, right? Like the story and the content piece of it itself. Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely. And then we also,
I think, I mean, it goes into the same direction, right? It goes into the direction that you can't and shouldn't rely on just one single like output metrics. Like, you know, I want links and I got 20, but the question is that the right 20? And is that something that you could be proud of in terms of the output that it really generated, right?
Yeah, that's it. So it's like, of course, it's possible to have like a KPI or goal like of, having, or I don't know, generating 20 backlinks, but I don't think that that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Probably not even the beginning, but hey, yeah. No, I know. Yeah, that is what I'm saying. I think what people need to be aware of is that they will always have the challenge that some of those data points are somewhat stuck in another system. And then therefore you need to kind of find a way to aggregate. And I think one of those could be Data Studio, could be Tableau, could be something entirely different. I think one of the cool things with Data Studio though is also that you have all those kind of ready-made connectors, or at least a lot of them, and also Data Studio templates where people kind of gave some thought on how it actually should look like. I mean, you've seen a screen of ours. There's a bunch of other ways to do it, of course, as well. So I think this is something if you're building reportings or rebuilding your reporting pipeline, as we have done as well, because we were also using, in organic we're using this, and then in content we're using that, and at some point it just becomes really annoying, because if you would serve a client like full spectrum, then you would still have the issue that you've got like multiple reports, which is what no one really wants. So I think, if you're looking into this, have a look at those two. I think they're like at least the major ones right now, in terms of using it. There's a bunch of other ways, if you can't get the data directly through Supermetrics and the likes of that. We don't have time to go into all of that, but anyways, I mean, if you need help with that, feel free to reach out. Steffen, our department lead from Martech, is more than happy to help. He's always happy to receive questions around Data Studio integration, especially BigQuery. So again, feel free to get in touch either with Dominique or myself. I think that is a good way to solve that if you need help with that.
Yeah. Maybe one more thing. Sorry, yeah, shoot. One more thing. I just wanted to mention in terms of the Google Data Studio reportings and dashboards, what I found super cool over there when working with a long-term content marketing strategy, or what I like is like filtering is super easy when you think about comparing different kind of content campaigns, and also working on different kind or many different markets. They were using our country filters and also campaign filters. Of course, you need to work on the source sheet a bit, and on the input. But this is what I like really a lot, so that we have like the dashboard, the overall dashboard, and then filtering or having the chance to compare two different kinds of campaigns or different kind of formats and also countries. I think this is also huge advantage over there to have that pretty easy, the comparison factor. Yeah.
And it's all in one place, right? Which is great. Yeah. So you don't need to kind of use another reporting sheet for that, another one for that. So agreed. Well, we are already past the hour, which means we are down to almost 1 hour, which is crazy considering that it just felt like it was 5 minutes, but I guess it is what it is. Final 2 housekeeping notes. Again, if you want the slides, feel free to email me. If you want to chat about Tomorrowland, feel free to email me as well. That always works. And the second kind of housekeeping note is that we will be doing a pause with Peak Ace on air for 2 weeks. The main reason is that I will be going on vacation. So I think that's an important announcement. So we will actually be back, not next week, not the week after, but in 3 weeks' time. We will be announcing it, of course, on all the social channels with a topic, and I'm quite sure with a special guest for that episode as well. So that said, I wish you a fantastic rest of the week, and we will hopefully see and read you in 3 weeks' time from now on. Have a fantastic rest of the afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Bye-bye.